Watch out for that piranha. There goes the narwhal. There goes the Kelly.
However much they may dislike each other and however much their personal relationships may be difficult, they are going to have to do some kind of electoral deal or pact.
I think today's developments have made that a lot less likely. When Kemi Badenoch was on a trip she's been in Edinburgh for a couple of days, and the activist there was saying, God, we can't believe I voted for Jenrick. Anybody who's defected and left the party a year later was obviously never a Conservative. So I think this has kind of made Jenrick was sort of reform curious. You know, he was one of these people who, if asked, would never say, no, there's never going to be a deal. Where Kemi Badenoch was, no, these guys are divisive over my dead body. I think that's going to become the norm now, and the reform curious Tories will start to be looked at with suspicion. So the thing is, Andrew,
do you think there's going to be more people following Jenrick?
Maybe not of their own volition, but there is certainly there is talk that he was believed to lead a sort of faction. But the thing is, Nick Timothy, one of the people around him, is now being given a promotion now. Katie Lamb was very close to him. I don't think she has been for quite some time. And Danny Kruger was his campaign manager, but then left
gone already,
but without even telling him. So I think that all kind of fell apart. But the question mark is over Suella Braverman. She's been on the kind of watch list for quite some time. So, and Farage announced today that he's doing a cut-off. After May, no more Tory defectors.
So that's really interesting. Will there be a rush, Tom, before May, or will we sort of see very, very few of these happening again?
Well, it was interesting to me that Robert Jenrick name-checked Suella Braverman today, actually, in his speech. And my ears pricked up and I thought, well, is that happening? Because, of course, I think her husband was in reform from memory. So, I mean, that would make sense. All of the people that Fraser has just said clearly would make sense as well. They believe in the same things that Robert Jenrick believes. There is nothing between the two parties. I mean, there is another way of looking at it. I mean, I think Fraser's analysis there is persuasive. But if Kemi Badenoch becomes the never reform, I despise reform, they are a bunch of sort of race baiters and all the rest, well then she may solidify a kind of base, a kind of liberal centre-right base on the south-east somehow. Now that may make a coalition more easy or more palatable.
Yeah. I mean, she could have gone for Robert Jenrick over what he said when he was in Birmingham about no white face. He's not my kind of Britain, all the rest of it. Got along, but she didn't. I mean, she has kept him inside the party, as he has said things, as you've just been saying, Fraser, which a lot of Conservatives feel are fundamentally unconservative.
Yeah, and she's been trying to keep this big tent together. One of her phrases is that the Conservatives have internal coalitions to avoid external coalitions. And she's normally attacked those who criticise Jenrick, saying, look, for heaven's sake, we can talk about things like adults, not my language, but he's very free to choose his. But then again, I mean, people around her have been urging her to get rid of Jenrick for months now, probably the best part of a year, because he never stopped his campaign. When he lost, he just kept it and kept the momentum going. But she wasn't strong enough. She didn't feel she could risk splitting the party. Now I think we see her beginning to gain momentum. And I think after the last Tory party conference, that was a turning point. Good for her, not so good for Jenrick. That was the point I think he thought, I'm not going to leave this party after all. Time for Plan B.
Plan B. Tom, I was listening very carefully, as you were, to what Jenrick was saying. I was surprised by the ad hominem and ad feminem attacks on his former cabinet colleagues. I mean, he has gone out of his way to pick personal fights with people like Mel Stride and Priti Patel.
Yeah, I mean, it's a risky strategy, and it's perhaps an unbecoming one that will make that divide worse. But I mean, I think one of the things we've learned recently is these ad hominem attacks work. Like, look at what Kemi Badenoch did in the House of Commons towards Rachel Reeves. It was one of her greatest performances. It cut through. I was talking to a senior Labour advisor recently who said to me they had been watching Donald Trump's 2016 Republican presidential nomination debates, looking for lessons of what Kemi Badenoch should do if she wanted to succeed. How would she defeat Nigel Farage? How would she stamp her authority on her own side? And they said it would be personal attacks on those who had failed the Conservative Party, the old guard, and particularly on Nigel Farage. You have to make it personal. You have to go on the attack. And that's what Robert Jenrick's done. Now, I think this is another thing that Robert Jenrick brings. And you mentioned those videos. Now, communication is a central part of what a politician does. We've seen that with Donald Trump. he's the best communicator on the planet politically in terms of what he actually uses social media for. Robert Jenrick is one of the best in terms of those short videos. That means something. It matters. Together with Nigel Farage, obviously being a communicator, that's powerful. It's been one of Kemi Baden's flaws, actually. She's a good speaker. She's a good performer in the House of Commons. She's getting there, but she has not been on the front foot enough, and that was one of Jenrick's criticisms right from the beginning.
She, rightly or wrongly, decided not to try to get on the front foot. She figured that for the first year at least, nobody's going to listen to what the Conservatives have got to say because they couldn't point to a single problem that they weren't responsible for. And so she had to be there like Muhammad Ali, taking the punches, looking as if she's down it, and then choosing the right moment to fight back. That was her strategy. Now, of course, you could argue that was a mistake because Labour imploded more quickly. But when you look at it right now, you can see that we're starting in 2026, where the Conservatives are level pegging with Labour, if not slightly ahead. Now, Reform, of course, 10 points, 15 points ahead of both of them. They're going to do very, very well in the May elections. But it could well be that the Conservatives have bottomed out, and it's not impossible that the next election is between the two of those two, Farage or Bain.
Absolutely fascinating. I was talking to Constant earlier on, both parties very well. And he said, in the end, despite all the kind of drama of the day, I'd much prefer to be I'd be much more comfortable on the right of politics looking at what's going to happen than I would be on the left. Agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really underappreciated point. Look at the polls right now, and the two leading parties are both off the right. There is no reason why they couldn't be in opposition.
Absolutely fascinating. Thank you both very much indeed. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on our free Global Bear app and the ULBC app, which you can read and watch the latest from LBC. You can put your news categories in the order you would like them. You can pause, you can rewind live radio, you can listen to a range of podcasts. So download the all-new official LBC app for free from your app store now. Coming up at 10 on LBC, it's Henry Riley. But right now, it's time for Ian Dale.
Thanks, Andrew.
This man is a fraud. This man is not to be trusted.
Nigel Farage on Robert Jenrick only a few months ago. How times change. Today, Jenrick was brutally sacked by Kemi Badenoch. This after she got wind of what he was planning. What does it say about her leadership, her grip on the Conservative Party, but also, doesn't it just confirm Reform's growing reputation as a retirement home for failed Tory MPs and ministers? I've made no secret of my lack of respect for Jenrick, as I regard him as a pound-shot Tommy Robinson and an utter charlatan. How do you view him? On Cross Question, former Tory Chief Whip Simon Hart, commentator Jonathan Liss, Lib Dem MP Munira Wilson, and former Health Minister Steve Bryan. At 9, what can be done to reverse the record high abortion figures announced today?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 7 o'clock, Robert Jenrick has joined Reform UK after the Tories unearthed his plot to defect in a way they say was designed to be as damaging as possible. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch sacked him from her shadow cabinet, saying he wanted to torch her party. Andrew Marr asked Kevin Hollerake, the Conservative chair, what he thinks Mr Jenrick's motivation is.
It's personal ambition. Rob never settled with the fact in his own mind that he lost the leadership contest. I'm afraid, we've tried to hope, over time, as he sees Kemi improving, he can be a member of the team. But ultimately, I think it's about Rob's own personal ambitions. There's no other way to explain this.
He also called for a by-election in the now former Shadow Justice Secretary's Newark constituency. Robert Jenrick has already ruled that out. Answering questions at a press conference held by Reform UK earlier, he told LBC's deputy political editor he hasn't acted out of ambition.
Look, nobody leaves a party which they're the bookies' favourite to be leader out of ambition. You do this out of conviction. I've done this today because I'm convinced it's the right thing to do for my constituents and for the country. That's it.
Mr Jenrick becomes the first member of the Shadow Cabinet and second-serving Tory MP of this Parliament to defect to Reform UK. The party's deputy leader, Richard Tice, has told LBC the fact he's been in government will be a boost to his party.
What he brings is incredible experience of how to deal with the sort of the machinery of government, the challenges of that, and but as has been confirmed, there's no deals in terms of titles or roles. It's just hard work, roll your sleeves up, get stuck in, and provide that experience, and that's what he's going to do.
Stay with LBC for all the latest reaction. Iran's foreign minister says Tehran has no plan to hang people as the US claims hundreds of executions have been cancelled in the country. Donald Trump had threatened there would be serious consequences if anti-regime protesters were executed. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has been updating reporters.
The president understands today that 800 executions that were scheduled and supposed to take place yesterday were halted. And so the president and his team are closely monitoring this situation, and all options remain on the table for the president.
A number of European countries, including the UK and France, are planning to send troops to Greenland in a show of support for the island. Donald Trump is continuing to insist he wants to take the Danish-administered territory over on national security grounds. Kurt Volker, a former US ambassador to NATO, told Andrew Marr the president doesn't need ownership.
We have a treaty with Denmark from 1951. We can do everything we need to do militarily. The reason we don't have a larger military presence there now is because of the decisions of prior U.S. administrations to pull out, rather than anything that Denmark or Greenland has done.
Ofsted is inspecting a school in Bristol over a decision to delay a visit from a local MP who is Jewish. It follows claims Bristol Brunel Academy may have been intimidated into cancelling Damien Egan's visit by pro-Palestinian activists. The school says it was postponed due to a protest taking place at the end of the day. And the UK economy returned to growth in November following a boost from Jaguar Land Rover. The car maker's factories restarted production following a cyber attack. GDP rose by 0.3% compared to a decline of 0.1% in October. In the city, the FTSE 100 closed up 54 points at 10,238. The pound buys $1.33 and €1.15. LBC weather, lingering rain in eastern England will clear tonight. Elsewhere we'll see a few scattered showers, lows of -4. A mixture of cloudy weather and bright spells across the UK tomorrow. There will be a few showers, particularly in the west. The best of the sunshine will be in the northeast of Scotland and southeast England, a high of 10 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Amelia Cox.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Ian Dale.
Hello, a very good evening to you. It's 4 minutes past 7 on LBC. Hope you're watching on Global Player, the LBC app, or the LBC YouTube channel. We're streaming the programme all 3 hours now, every single day. What a joyous day it is to see the leader of the Conservative Party showing leadership, taking decisive action against somebody who's been a thorn in her side ever since she has been leader. The man that she beat to be leader, Robert Jenrick, she sacked him this morning from the shadow cabinet. She suspended his Conservative Party membership because she discovered that he was planning to defect to Reform UK. The Conservative chief phoned him to tell her this news, and he denied everything and then put the phone down. And he pressed on 4:30, Nigel Farage unveils his latest new recruit. Well, a lot to talk about. Do you think Kenny Baker did the right thing? Did she actually have any choice? What does it say about her leadership, about her grip on the Conservative Party? But what does it say about him? I'll give you my views on what it says about him in a moment, and pin your ears back because I can tell you now it won't be pretty. What does it say about Reform UK as well? Because on the face of it, to attract the man who nearly was leader of the Conservative Party is a bit of a coup. But I suspect there'll be a lot of people, a lot of members of Reform UK, who will be thinking, I'm not so sure this was such a good idea, because they're already gaining a reputation as being a retirement home for failed Tory MPs and ministers. Well, let's take us through the day's events. Natasha Clark is here, our political editor, to do just that. What a day, Natasha.
Yeah, it's been sensational, really. And I don't know about you, Ian, but, firstly, when I saw this news, I gasped. I didn't believe it. Jacob Rees-Mogg, the former Tory cabinet minister, said earlier today he thought this was AI when he first
When I first saw it on Twitter this morning, I just thought, oh my God, she's been hacked.
Yeah, it was jaw-dropping, and then realised it was true, and all of us were in shock. Nobody had expected this. And I don't know about you, but when I was watching that press conference that we saw from Robert Jenrick earlier today, when he didn't come out Nigel Farage introduced him. Is there a chance he's double bluffing him here? Could you imagine what would have happened if he'd actually come out and said, I'm sticking in the Conservative Party? Anyway, I thought, we had no idea what to expect. It was quite something. And really, what a drive-by assassination from Robert Jenrick of his now former party. Absolutely scathing about Kemi Badenoch, about Mel Stride, about Priti Patel, and absolutely trashing
himself, obviously.
And yeah, exactly. And also just trashing the Conservative record in government, of which he has played a key part for many, many years. And I don't know about you, Ian, I'm sure your inbox, just like mine, has been filling up with really upset reaction from Conservatives, and really angry, I think, also from many aides and former MPs, many of which I can't repeat on your show because it is very unfriendly and unrepeatable language. One former Tory aide has said he was always the ultimate traitor. Tim Loughton, the former minister, has tweeted this earlier today, dealt with Jennifer a lot as immigration minister. He invariably had to defer to officials. He was completely out of his depth, flounced off, claiming he couldn't get his way on reducing immigration rather than staying and fighting.
And just while I think of it, let me tell you something which was told to me at a dinner, but since I think Michael Gove, who was at that dinner, he has said it, so I will repeat it now. It wasn't him that said this at the dinner, but it was somebody who was in the room when Robert Jenrick, who as immigration minister, was offered the job of immigration minister by Rishi Sunak, and he said, yes, but we can't go ahead with the Rwanda scheme, it's cruel. And he actually burst into tears.
No, surely.
No, absolutely.
Surely.
And I know that, I'll tell you in the break who this person was who told me this, and you will then understand that it has to be true. And apparently that did happen.
And so fascinating. I mean, look, he was always dubbed Robert Generic for his loyalty in some ways to various regimes. He obviously first started out as, a very Cameronite Tory, didn't he? And then had a bit of a journey. He went into the Home Office, and, I do remember speaking to him both before and after the Home Office. And it was clear that he did feel that the Civil Service, the Home Office, were partly to sort of blame for the reason why he couldn't get a grip on migration. But shall we just take you to a little bit of what Robert Jenrick had to say earlier today? They kept us waiting, didn't they, all day? We were waiting to see if Robert Jenrick was really going to defect to reform. Nobody seemed to know. His aides were not picking up the phone. He wasn't picking up the phone. But once Robert Jenrick finally did appear on the podium this afternoon alongside Nigel Farage, he explained he was defecting.
Everyone who shares my conviction has to put aside personal loyalties, has to put aside party political considerations and get behind Nigel. Because after the next general election, the choice is going to be this: Starmer, or whichever non-entity replaces him, or Nigel Farage. And it does not take me one blink of an eyelid to say to you that I want Nigel to be our Prime Minister after the next general election. That is the only way we will save our country. And so patriotic people who share my views have to rally behind Nigel and reform right now.
And he and his new party leader went on to take questions. LBC's deputy political editor Aggie Chambray asked Nigel Farage about having called Robert Jenrick a fraud just 5 months ago.
I wasn't sure that his conversion was genuine. I thought perhaps he was doing it for political advantage within the Conservative Party to become leader. I had my doubts, but I've begun to believe, since the summer, that actually this guy has been on a genuine journey, is viewing the country very differently. And as I said earlier, the thing that really swung it for me is he was the only principled resignation from the last government. And when people who fought very, very hard to get into Parliament, to rise up the ladder into ministerial position, senior ministerial position, for people to resign on points of principle, there are very, very... I tell you what, Aggie, there are very, very few people in public life who do that these days, and that's what convinced me that this guy was in the same camp that I'm in.
And meanwhile, shortly before that reform press conference, the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch had been speaking earlier today about her decision this morning to sack Mr Jenrick from her shadow cabinet.
It's not a blow because we have great people in our party. I have a new Shadow Justice Secretary, Nick Timothy. He is the man who exposed the scandal of West Midlands Police. That's a great win. We have lots of people in our party who can do great things. And of course I don't want to lose people, but if people are actively damaging the party, then they cannot stay. Reform has been very clear that they, Aaron Banks actually came out not that long ago saying that what Reform wants to do is to destroy the Conservative Party. That's their strategy. And what Rob was doing was helping them.
So Ian, tonight, lots of questions still remain. Is this a real turning point for the right? I think probably it could be. As many people have said before, the end of the Conservative Party. I think you're probably going to have something very different to tell our listeners. But there is a question about whether anyone else follows Robert Jenrick out of the Conservative Party. Does he have support? Someone I was speaking to earlier today suggested potentially a couple of MPs could follow him. We obviously also heard from Nigel Farage earlier today saying, if you want to join us, you better get in line soon, because after May the 7th, we ain't taking any of you coming any further into the Reform Party from the Conservatives. And obviously, we've been talking about this time and time again with every Reform defection, every big name they get. When does this Reform anti-establishment party just become the establishment? Just become a bunch of washed-up Tories, has-beens, people that used to be in government, the exact same people that Reform have been having a go at time and time again for years now, and now they're welcoming them into the party. I can't help but think at some point this is going to start to hit them in the polls.
Well, I just wonder whether Kemi Badenoch in the next couple of days will do a speech where she effectively says, any other Conservatives that want to join Robert Jenrick in Reform, please leave now, because I want to get this party back on its feet. This is how I'm going to do it. But anybody that hasn't got the stomach for this fight, be my guest, go. And just say it in as blunt terms as that.
Yeah, she should. I think so. I think that could happen too. And she has actually emailed all Conservative members today with a statement that linked to her statement. This is what's happened. This is what I've done with Robert Jenrick. I think that will shore up a bit of support. But let's be honest. Even though Kemi Badenoch was first out of the stumps on this, even though that she has essentially got out there first and really tripped up both Reform, Nigel Farage and Robert Jenrick today. What's happened is that she has suffered a big blow to her party. You might disagree. You might say, actually,
no, I think it is.
But it is a big blow to the party.
Whenever a senior figure of a political party, doesn't matter what political party, when they go to another one, that is a blow. But let me tell you what I really think about this defection. Natasha, thank you very much indeed. I have very little respect for anyone who defects from a political party that they've been a member of for many years. Obviously, there are different circumstances. But when you see the history of Robert Jenrick, it is very clear to see that this man is a pure charlatan. He came into Parliament in 2014 in a by-election, and he portrayed himself then as an ultra David Cameron supporter, full of the hugger hoodie and all of that stuff. And then over time he's gone to support different leaders in different ways. But in the last few years he's become, I called him a year ago Pan Shot Tommy Robinson because of some remarks he made, a post that he did on social media where he dismissed all Muslims as having medieval attitudes and from an alien culture. Now, I don't deny that there are people who believe in Islam who do hold some views that you could be described as that. However, you can't dismiss an entire faith. And words have consequences in politics. And I wrote an article for the newspaper in which I took into task for this language. It says, what on earth has happened to this very urbane man who's become this hard right fundamentalist? It's just not right, a lot of the things that he's been saying. Kemi Badenoch, I think, would have quite liked to have got rid of him then, but she was in a fairly weak position and couldn't. I think the Conservative Party is well rid of this turbulent priest. He was not to be trusted. Everyone in the upper circles of the Conservative Party knew what he was doing, machinating against Kemi Badenoch. And then, of course, after her conference speech and then her response to the budget and her performances at PMQs, he could see that his prospects of becoming Tory leader were diminishing by the week. And I think that is what has driven him to make this decision today. Now, he clearly hadn't intended to do it today. Kemi called him out. I think a really brave act of leadership on her part. I think she's done exactly the right thing. Somebody's just said, Rose, on my screen here, he's been radicalised. Well, I think that actually is quite a good way of putting it. Many people put it down to his wife, who's a very sort of MAGA-supporting Trumpite, I suppose, and that maybe she's influenced his political journey. I have no knowledge of that whatsoever, but there is no doubt that he's been on a political journey. And as I said to Natasha just now, when he was offered the job of Minister of State for Immigration by Rishi Sunak, he thought he was going to be made Home Secretary. He was really annoyed that he wasn't being given the top job. And he broke down in tears in front of Rishi Sunak, begging him to abandon the Rwanda regime because he regarded it as cruel. Well, he's been on a bit of a journey since then, hasn't he? I could go on at great length about this conversion to the hard right. I suspect Nigel Farage is going to live to regret the day that he ever allowed Robert Jenrick into his party. Robert Jenrick, I think, is going to be a real troublemaker within Reform. I don't think he's going to get on with Richard Tice. I don't think he's going to get on with Sia Youssef. We shall see. I may be wrong. It may be the making of Reform, but I doubt it. We'll come to your calls in a moment, and we're going to be hearing from the new leader of Reform UK in Scotland, Malcolm Offord. It's 18 minutes past 7.
Weekdays from 7 a.m.
They have fatal incompetence.
Straight to the point.
What is the problem they've got over there?
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Countries going backwards, growth down, energy prices up.
Listen on our free Global Player app or the new LBC app. Download it now from your app store. LBC.
The voicemail of Holiday Rebecca. She's a bit like work Rebecca, except her stress headache is gone. Her frown lines have faded, and instead of hunching over her desk with a meal deal, she's enjoying fresh, hand-rolled pasta for lunch. If you require work Rebecca, please try again in about 10 days.
Take your holidays seriously. British Airways Holidays. At all protected.
At Kia, we have an award-winning range of electric cars for you to discover. From the compact SUV, the Kia EV3, and our latest hatchback, the Kia EV4, to our stylish new Kia EV5, the all-electric family SUV. Discover what driving electric really means. And if you order any Kia electric car by March 31st, you'll enjoy your first 2 services free. Search Discover Your Kia EV to book your test drive today.
Kia. Movement that inspires.
T's and C's apply.
Buying a home on a holiday park was the retreat you always wanted. But then came unexpected site fee increases. And that was before the dramatic loss in value. If you bought a home on a holiday park in the UK, you may have been missold. HolidayParkAdviceCentre.co.uk could help you receive thousands in compensation. Text ASSIST to 78900. That's ASSIST to 78900.
Ian Dale on LBC.
It's 20 past 7 on LBC. We'll come to your calls in just a moment. But first, let's talk to the newly appointed Reform UK Scotland leader, Malcolm Offord, who's a former Conservative peer and business minister. Malcolm, very good evening to you. Now, I promise you, we are going to talk about Reform UK and its prospects in Scotland in the May elections. But I have to start with the defection of Robert Jenrick. Now, you went through this process a few weeks ago. What's your reaction to Robert Jenrick joining Reform tonight?
Well, I have to say it was a rather sensational event. We were sat in Kirkcaldy, Nigel Farage and myself, at 11 o'clock getting on with our press conference, and the news literally broke live at that moment. But it's a sensational appointment, move, defection, call what you want, for Robert Jenrick to come to Reform. I have to say that.
Well, it's certainly a sensational move, but can he be trusted given the political journey that he seems to have been on, going from an ultra-Cameroon to somebody who speaks the language of the hard right?
It's interesting, this, because for those of us who've done this, journey is the right word. These decisions are not made easily, and they're not made quickly, and they take quite a long time in the gestation and then in the delivery, indeed. And, Danny Kruger went through his own journey. That was an important part of my journey, watching how he did his, which is when you feel that you cannot live in the party you're in because you're having to disagree continually with the party line, you actually have no choice but to move. We're all fundamentally pretty loyal people, pretty tribal people. We want to stay, we think, in the family we belong in, but you get to the point where you don't belong there, you've got to move. And it has to come from conviction. It cannot come from careerism, it has to come from conviction.
But how can his loyalty be trusted by Nigel Farage, given that he's been incredibly disloyal to the woman who beat him in the leadership contest? And it's not just today's evidence. I mean, he's been machinating against Kemi Badenoch all the way through. Who's to say he won't do the same to Nigel Farage?
No, but the struggle that he's been demonstrating is a struggle of two sides of that coin, which is the one to stay loyal to your party, but struggling with the fact that that party no longer believes or can deliver what you think the country needs. And reform is effectively a movement of people who want change, and you've got to really want change. It's a visceral thing. It can't just be an intellectual exercise. And I think what he's demonstrated is that is a struggle, and it's a fight, and it's not an easy process, but when you do it, you have to finally go with conviction.
But if Reform UK gets a reputation of being a retirement home for former Tory ministers and MPs, that doesn't signal change, does it? It means that, well, it's back to the Boris Johnson years. I think there are 7 ex-Boris Johnson ministers now that have defected to Reform UK. That's not putting a fresh face in. That's not indicating change, is it?
No, but I think, look, I can see why that optic, and that's been a big theme today, that optic about ex-Tories. But there are, as you know, conversations going on with other members in other parties. And certainly from a Scottish point of view, we are looking at putting out a team of 73 candidates for Holyrood 26. We've got all the bases covered. And this is a very exciting group of people, because these are not people known by the public. They're not former politicians. They're not professional politicians. They're a group of people who are actually saying, who are coming from normal walks of life, who are saying enough's enough, we want change. And that is not going to... I can tell you right now that when you see the line of candidates for Reform Scotland for May 26, you're not going to see very many ex-Tories there at all.
You're going to be one of them, though. You're going to be leading the campaign. Have you been handed a poisoned chalice, or is it... I mean, I watched the press conference this morning, and you did look as if you were really going to relish the challenge ahead for the next 4 months. But what are the limits of your ambitions?
Well, I don't think there should be a limit to ambition. I think that momentum is with us. We've now got over 12,500 members. We've got the 73 seats covered, and we're now second in the polls. It's now a 2-horse race, really, between Reform and the SNP. And on the doorstep, we're getting a lot of support in Labour heartlands. Working people, ordinary, decent working people, hard-working people are fed up with the status quo, with promises every 5 years and nothing changing. And Labour, the clue was in the name, used to represent working people, and they don't anymore. So the reality is that Reform is a new movement that says we want change in Holyrood. After 25 years of mid-table mediocrity, we want change.
Obviously, Reform UK backed Brexit, or that wasn't actually existing then, but it's a successor party. Is Reform UK standing as a UK unionist party in these elections, or are you targeting SNP votes as well?
Well, the clue in the name, Reform UK, we are a UK-wide party, we are a unionist party. However, here's the thing. Within Scotland, we have a wide range of opinion on constitution, and we're fed up with it. We've talked about it for 25 years, and the public's fed up with it. But one thing we can coalesce around on either side is we want Scotland to become the most successful part of the UK. And right now there's no appetite for talking about a referendum, there's no appetite for talking about the constitution, but there is appetite for talking about how we make Scotland prosperous and successful inside the UK, and I can see that appealing to nationalists as well as unionists.
And are you getting a fair crack of the whip in the Scottish media, which, in my experience, tends to give the SNP a little bit of an easy ride?
Look, I think that at the end of the day, you could say that there's a little bit of a cosy relationship going on at Holyrood. We've got the same people being re-elected. I mean, I think John Swinney is going in for something like his 6th Parliament. It's the same old people, Jackie Bailey, Murdo Fraser. It's the same old faces, same old. And what is going on here is Reform are frankly an insurgent party who are saying we want to stir up that cosy consensus. So I'm getting a really lovely rough ride from the press.
Well, I'm hoping that at some point over the next 2 or 3 months, we're going to organise an LBC leaders debate in Scotland, which I very much hope you'll accept an invitation to take part in.
Of course, I'd be delighted to.
Thank you very much indeed. That's Malcolm Offord, the new leader of Reform UK in Scotland. Right, let's get some reaction from you about this defection to Reform UK by Robert Jenrick. How do you think Kemi Badenoch has handled it? What do you think it means for both the Conservative Party and Reform UK? Let's go to Steve in Kingston. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Ian. Thanks for taking my call. Ian, I clearly see a pattern here emerging. I actually, when Reform got together, I thought, great, breath of fresh air. We're going to see new, vibrant, fresh people coming to the front that have never actually dabbled in politics before, but are passionate about their country and about making a change. I am really disappointed in Nigel and what he's doing. You are right, it looks like it's a retirement home for ex-politicians from parties, 2 major parties, that have failed this country. Why would anybody want to vote for Reform with people like that? What I was hoping to see, which I heard in your conversation with the gentleman, leader of the Reform Party in Scotland, was that there are new candidates that people haven't heard of before, but bring a breath of fresh air. I'm sick and tired of hearing politicians saying that, you know, I'm a seasoned campaigner, I've been in politics all my life, I've sat in the House of Parliament. Yeah, and you've got into a rut. So now, push yourself aside, let fresh people come in. Do you know what? I would love to stand as a local MP. I really would, because I'm passionate about my country, I'm passionate about the national health system, I'm passionate about the problems that we face now. But I am not one of these people that literally have been polluted, like Jenrick, have been polluted by the fame, the money, the power and everything that brings. Because if he's going to do it this time, he'll do it again. He's out for himself, and it's as simple as that.
Well, I understand why you say that. Obviously, if you're starting a new political party, and Reform is relatively new, you're always going to want to welcome defectors from other parties, because it's a sign of momentum, and momentum is a big thing in campaigning in politics. So I don't blame Nigel Farage for welcoming people from other parties, but when it becomes one-way traffic, when they all seem to be from one party, and he's promised there'll be a Labour defection on Tuesday, but I'm going to reserve judgment on the level of whoever that person is. I don't think it's going to be either a sitting MP or, well, maybe a former MP, I suppose. But, I mean, one swallow does not make a summer, does it? Steve, really good call. Thank you very much indeed. Faraz says, yes, Kemi has undoubtedly upped her game for her party, but arguably not at the pace Reform are making. Today's defection was more force majeure than a voluntary exit, but the reality was Jenrick had left the Conservative Party once it lost the leadership, and arguably was just an annoyance to Kemi's rebuild. Today is a good win for Reform, but in the long run, he'll get a front bench role, Home Secretary perhaps, should they win or become of the official opposition. But can he behave for long enough? I suspect not. He isn't patient enough. For now, it's a win for Reform and a good week, if not a frenetic one. Next week's trailed Labour defection will add to their momentum, so Starmer will not be able to make hay of today's outcome by the time PMQs comes around. Well, again, it depends who that defection is. You're listening to LBC. I'm Ian Dale. It's 7:30. In a moment, we'll be hearing from the Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed Davey. But first, let's get the news headlines with Amelia Cox.
Robert Jenrick has joined Reform UK. He was sacked from Kemi Badenoch's shadow cabinet earlier after she was shown evidence of his plans to defect. Now, former Shadow Justice Secretary says both Labour and Conservatives are to blame for breaking Britain. He's ruled out calling a by-election in his Newark constituency. And the White House says hundreds of executions were cancelled in Iran yesterday as officials in Tehran say there were no plans to hang people. Donald Trump had warned of serious consequences if anti-regime protesters were executed. LBC weather, lingering rain in eastern England will clear tonight. Elsewhere we'll see a few scattered showers, lows of -4 degrees.
This is LBC.
If you bought a home on a holiday park in the UK, what you thought you were getting may not be what you ended up with. From unexpected site fee increases, running costs, a huge depreciation in value, many owners feel they've been missold. If you think this might be you, holidayparkadvicecentre.co.uk could help you receive the compensation you're entitled to. Text ADVICE to 78900 to find out more. That's ADVICE to 78900.
Nothing beats that just booked feeling. Because when you book a Jet2 holiday, you start dreaming of pool days and seeing the sights. Get ahead for summer. Book now with just a £60 deposit per person. Choose from our best rooms and hotels and save £200 per couple. Nothing beats a Jet2 holiday. Package holidays you can trust. Option natural protected. Subject to availability and conditions.
You want £1 million?
I'd love £1 million.
So you enter the birthday draw. It's a very personal draw, so you think of a personal way to spend £1 million.
I would hire a hype man, so everything I do would suddenly be epic.
It's a lucky day, and you win the birthday draw. So...
Let's go, Kev. Goat cheese bagel for lunch.
This could get tiresome.
Is it your lucky day? Search the birthday draw and enter now. From Global and ITV. 18 plus UK only. No purchase necessary.
Leading Britain's conversation. Ian Dale. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
7:33. We'll come back to more of your calls on the defection of Robert Jenrick to Reform UK in just a moment. First, let me tell you who's on cross question at 8. We have Lord Simon Hart, the Conservative peer, who was Chief Whip in Rishi Sunak's government and presumably was in the room when Robert Jenrick resigned. Munira Wilson is Liberal Democrat education spokesperson and MP for Twickenham. Steve Bryan, former Conservative Health Minister, now co-hosts the health-focused podcast Prevention is the New Cure, and the political commentator Jonathan Liss. But first, let's have a chat to the Liberal Democrat leader, Ed Davey. He's also, of course, MP for Kingston and Surbiton. Ed, very good evening. Thank you for joining us. I mean, a big day in politics today. I think we can all agree that. What's your reaction to Kemi Badenoch sacking Robert Jenrick and his subsequent defection to Reform?
Well, good evening, Ian. Great to be on the programme. I mean, I have to say, I was catching up on the news during the day because I've got my confession here. My wife bought me a trip to the exhibition at the British Library called Secret Maps. And it's only on for a few more days, so if you've missed it, I really recommend it. It's really great fun. So I've been catching up on the news, and yeah, it's a big day. It's a massive day in politics. I think Kemi will have thought at the end of PMQs that she had quite a good week, and she's got Robert Jenrick pulling the rug from under her. So. Although she seems to have handled it with a bit of a skill today, it's really not great news for her. And I think Jenrick, he's one of these guys, isn't he, who changes with the wind. He was a Cameron Conservative, he was a Remainer when that was in his interests. He thought that was where he would get to the top, and now he clearly thinks that's not the case. He doesn't think the Conservatives can win, and he's jumped ship. And that sends a bit of a message to people, doesn't it?
Well, it may do, I suppose, but do you think that Nigel Farage may live to regret this particular defection? Because our last caller, and I said this as well at the beginning of the programme, it does seem that Reform UK is becoming almost a retirement home for Conservative ministers and MPs, and if they're going to get an electoral coalition and get voters from, dare I say it, Labour and the Liberal Democrats to support them, I mean, I wouldn't have thought that was where they want to position themselves.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I didn't hear your previous caller, but increasingly that story is playing. I mean, so many of Reform's top echelons, if you like, are former Tories, people who cause the problems that Nigel Farage is reigning against. And I think it sort of undermines his case. I think actually there are probably members of Reform who are pretty upset about it. People who thought, well, Robert Jenrick, Nadhim Zahawi, these are the people who I left the Tory party for to go Reform. I don't want them following me. So I think you're right. I think it does create a bit of problem for him. But, I'm not going to shed a tear for that, because I think Nigel Farage is a serious danger to our country. I think the policies pursuing these Trump's America, doesn't he? And I don't think British people want that, really, when they actually look at the sort of things that Nigel Farage is putting forward. And I think I really welcome the extra scrutiny he's had in the last few months, to be honest. And I think that's part of the reason why they're not doing as well as they were.
I was thinking earlier when I heard that you could come on the programme, well, what effect does this have on the Liberal Democrats? And the only effect I could possibly think of was that in Tory-facing seats, and most of your seats have the Conservatives in second place, if Kemi Badenoch can give the impression to maybe people who decided to go from Conservative to Liberal Democrat in the last election, if she can give the impression, well, we're not this sort of far-right party that you maybe thought we were becoming. I've got rid of Robert Jenrick, and I've given the smack of firm leadership here. We are a centre-right party. I mean, that could, at the margins, affect how many votes you get at the next election in those seats.
I don't think that's how voters will view what's going on at the moment on the right of British politics. There seems to be this fight within the Conservatives, fight within Reform, fight between Reform and Conservatives, and people don't really vote for that sort of stuff. And I think it's given us more space to make our case. And this week, Prime Minister's questioned, I talked about the problems in A&E departments across the country, the chaos of corridor care. Then we saw the RCN report today confirming, and BBC work suggesting that we were right to raise this issue, and it's a massive issue for people. As you know, I also raised the issue of South East Water again, and the appalling management failures there that are hitting people across Kent and Sussex. And I think those are the issues that people really care about, and they're just seeing on the right wing British politics, they're just having fights. So it's actually leaving us space, and where I think it will help us, Ian, is it gives us a space to show that we're actually in tune with the concerns of British people, and we're coming up with ideas about how to solve them.
I've been hearing a few whispers within the Liberal Democrats that you're not being sort of active enough, that you're not sort of socking it to them, and the Liberal Democrat poll rating ought to be higher. How can you reassure malcontents in your own party? And I'm not pretending there are that many of them, but there are whispers, and I'm sure you've heard them. How can you reassure people that you're really going to be able to take the fight to not just the Tories and Reform, but Labour as well?
Well, first of all, the last election, my first as leader, we got our best result for 100 years. And if you look at council by-elections since last May, we've won more than any other party. So there's lots of evidence. But, let me address your point. I've been in the party a long time, and you'll have observed and talked to Liberal Democrat MPs over the years. There's always been noises off whoever the leader's been. This is the 7th parliamentary party I've been in, and I actually think it's the most united I've ever seen, and we've got a real case to make. We've got our record 72 MPs that are a really talented group of people. We're building up our base in council elections, and my view at this stage of the Parliament, the polls don't really matter. Local elections results are the only real test of what voters are thinking. Polls at this stage is just all over the place. Our job now is, ahead of May local elections, the Holyrood election in Scotland, the Senate election in Wales, to prosecute our case at those actual elections, and then build our strength in more and more seats. And coming off a base of 72, I think the chances of us surprising people in the next general election are increasing. Particularly, let me be frank with you, Ian, with the right-wing split in the way it is. Today, just confirming that split on the right.
One of the major consequences of today, and I haven't heard heard anyone else say this, is that the chances of a Reform Conservative pact at the next election are now more negligible than they've ever been, which can only be to the benefit of your party, I would have thought. Just before we finish, you've created, I was going to say a bit of a niche for yourself, I'm not sure that's the right word, about being the leading critic of Donald Trump in this country. What are you making of the latest developments in Greenland?
Well, deeply alarming. I've always been a real strong believer in NATO. I think it's the most important thing for defending the British people in our country and our allies. And if he were to have a military attack on Greenland and carry forward what he's been saying, and the way he dismissed the Greenlanders and the Danish yesterday, that was appalling, that could be the end of NATO. And that would be, I'd be really sorry for that. I think it'd be really worrying, really dangerous. So we've got to find a way to get him to realise that the stakes are very, very high. The US would lose out of that, right? Very badly, in my view. And so I think the government was right to work with European colleagues. The letter that Keir Starmer signed was important, but we've actually got to go there and show in a proper NATO deployment that we are serious about the defence of Greenland from Russia, which is what President Trump is saying is all about. Let us show him. The moment I think the government only wants to send one British soldier over, and that's frankly pathetic. They should be joining with our NATO allies. I would argue that this is a case for the European NATO in Northern Europe, which Britain created and has led. It's not regularly talked about, but it's called the Joint Expeditionary Force, the JEF, with 10 Northern European nations, often countries who are used to fighting in Arctic-type conditions. I think they should be the core to the deployment in Greenland, and I think we should invite the Canadians to join that. And I think that would show to the White House, yes, that NATO's prepared to support the US in its backyard against threats from Russia and China.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us tonight on LBC. That's Ed Davey, the Liberal Democrat leader. Right, back to your calls, your reaction to Robert Jenrick defecting to Reform UK and Kemi Badenoch sacking him. Simon's in Eastbourne. Hello, Simon.
Hello, Ian. Nice to speak to you again. It's a shame I'm following it daily because you've thrown me off in my train of thought.
Oh, sorry about that.
I used to be a really sort of keen Liberal Democrat supporter until the COVID position they took, which forced Eastbourne to lose a bloody good MP that served us well, who realised that if they held firm on that line, he would lose his votes, and sure enough, he did. That was very sad. But anyway, back to the Jenrick thing. It's now just highlighting the fact that politicians are self-serving in the country rather than serving the country. And Robert Jenrick has done a calculation that he thinks the Reform stand a better chance of being elected next time up, so he'll bail out whatever. I was brought up during the years of conviction politics with Maggie Thatcher, Michael Foot. You knew what you were getting. They were saying what they believed in, and
tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on our free Global Player app or the new LBC app.
With over 50 years experience at Fidelity, we believe there's a difference between investing and being invested. Investing is having access to guidance, tools and expert insights. Being invested means feeling confident about your future. Investing is choosing from a wealth of investment options. Being invested means focusing on your long-term goals. For ISAs, pensions or advice, be truly invested with Fidelity. Go to fidelity.co.uk. Your capital is at risk. Terms apply.
With Little Plus, you can hit your January health goals with 20% off all grapes and up to 20% off selected gut health products, including your favourite brands like Actimel and Activia. Open the Little Plus app to start saving. Lidl, more to value. Limited offer while stocks last. Little Plus T's and C's apply. 18 plus GB only. Offer ends 28th of the 1st. Calcium contributes to the normal function of digestive enzymes.
Find me somebody to love.
You'll love the Dreams Mega Clearance Event. Shop now for up to 40% off. Dreams. Love your bed.
Wrap up with great savings in the Vodafone winter sale. Get reliable full fibre broadband from only £24 per month. Hurry, this amazing deal ends the 28th of January. Plus, switching is easy with one-touch switch. So, go online or in-store today. Vodafone.
£6 per month. Contract subject to credit check acceptance and availability. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/terms.
Calling all young creatives. It's time to get prepped for the journalism industry. And where better than Global Academy? Here's Molly, a journalism student in Year 12.
Outside of the classroom, I do a daily newsletter and produce videos essentials. We learn everything we need to be a journalist and have even learned alongside the news team at Global.
Global Academy. Apply now and join us in Years 10 or 12. globalacademy.com.
Ian Dale, text 84850. This is LBC.
7:49 on LBC. We're getting your reaction to the sacking of Robert Jenrick by Kemi Badenoch and his subsequent defection. Steve's in Guildford. Hello, Steve.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, I agree with you. He won't be a good fit for reform. But also, I've got, in the spirit of fairness, I think you should have sort of aired our Prime Minister's CV when it comes to climbing the greasy pole of success. You know, Blairite, Corbynista, now to what he is today, no one ever knows. You know, politics at the moment, it's not about values, which is long gone since the politicians of my youth. Now it's all about public opinion, and parties just move to what the nearest opinion polls say, which is modern politics in this country, which it's to me. I look at the front benches, the shadow front bench, I look at the MPs, and I cringe. There's nobody with any real values, you know, staunch believers of what they believe in. You know, they sway at the slightest shift of wind, and that's just politics. Because don't forget, the last election, it was the lowest turnout, I believe, for many elections. So there's millions and millions of people that didn't vote last time that I believe will vote this time in the general election. And I think that's what these parties are aiming at, not their core values, but the people that they will sway with public opinion. And it's just a sad indictment of British politics at the moment. It has been for, well, to be honest with you, it's been since Blair left. You know, we had Thatcher, then we had Blair, and then since Blair, you know, the Liberals sold their soul over student fees, and it's been a slow decline since. Well, no one stands for what anybody stands for. It changes from week to week, and it's very hard to keep up, to be honest with you.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. Stonesy on the text says, I didn't think anyone could match the brass neck of Nadeem Zahawi earlier this week. Today, that worm Jenrick blows him out of the water. The audacity to blame the current government for all of our problems and wash their hands of blame is simply astounding. Well, to be fair to Robert Jenrick, he didn't quite do that, because he said the governments of which he was a member had failed, but he didn't seem to think that he should bear any responsibility for that. It was all other people's fault. Callum's in Newcastle. Hello, Callum.
Hey, Ian, I hope you're doing well. You all right?
Fine, thank you. What would you like to tell us?
Nigel Farage needs to stop bringing Tories in. Like, I'm a massive reform supporter. but he needs to stop. I'm happy to maybe accept another 1 or 2 more, but if he carries on bringing these in, I'm telling you now, I'm not voting for him. I'm not. Like, I like some of these policies. I don't like all of them, but I like most of them, etc., etc. But he needs to stop bringing them in. He's making reform 2.0. He brought me in because I was somebody who didn't like Labour, didn't like Conservative, didn't like Lib Dem, didn't like whoever. And he brought me in because he was that other party. But now he keeps on bringing them in and bringing them in and bringing them in. Yes, Nadeem, fantastic when it came to the vaccines, but rubbish at everything else. Robert Jenrick, great at talking, but absolutely no loyalty whatsoever.
Right, let me play devil's advocate, because I'm thinking to myself, in a cabinet. Now, it's all very well, and in an ideal world, you would probably like a cabinet of all new people who weren't necessarily got a big political background. But you do need some people, and I think this Labour government is a good illustration of this, where they've got very few people who've ever been in government before, Ed Miliband being the exception. You've got to have a few people who know how to pull the levers of power, because what Labour have found is that the civil service, and this is not a huge criticism of the civil service, but they're very good at not making things happen if they don't want them to. And can you imagine the civil service operating under a reform government? They will try and put a block on virtually everything. So you've got to have a few people who do know what to do. So Farage will say, well, Nadeem Zahawi, you may not like some of the things he did as a minister, but he managed to get all the vaccines out, so he knew how to pull the levers of power. So that would be his justification. Does that fit with you?
No, 100%. And honestly, I laughed and agreed with you 100%. Every word you've just said there is absolutely spot on. I couldn't agree more. The problem is he needs to stop doing it every single week.
Yeah.
Would you agree with me, Ian? Would it make more logical sense that he gets a group of 20 of them, and then he goes, let's have one big massive Monday morning politics. Hiya guys, let's talk about it. Here's Tim, Charles, Julie, whoever. Do you know what I mean? He brings all of these in one big lump sum, and he goes, these are who are taken. Thank you very much. See you later. Bye.
Well, I think he has said that they won't accept any more Tory defections after the May the 7th elections. I'm not quite sure whether that's a good idea or not, frankly. But yeah, he does need to get some more Labour people on board, because he said, was it late last year, he said, I've given up trying to persuade Conservatives to vote for us. We've got all the Tories we're going to get. We now need to go after Labour voters. But this is not the way to do it, as you've just demonstrated.
For me, I don't think he needs to go for the Labour voters. I think what he needs to go for is the voters who, like myself, are right in the middle. So I have voted Lib Dem, Labour and Conservative. In my last 3, because I'm who I've legally been able to vote for since ages.
What you're saying is Callum, you're fickle.
Yes, exactly. and no, which is true. But for me personally, I'm in an area that Labour is absolutely useless, but Lib Dem is great. Conservative just don't have a chance. Conservative I voted in the last Parliament was because at the time I thought they were best for me as a person, as an individual. But mostly I normally vote for who's best for my local government, not as in who's best for the overall government. I think maybe people may consider that's probably true, not 100% true, but that's why Lib Dems normally do extremely well. Because in local government, they're normally amazing. But does most people have confidence in them if they went, let me become, Prime Minister, second in charge, whoever? And you don't. And this is the way why I think reform need to calm down with the ex-Conservative vote, is because what's going to happen, in my opinion, in the next year or two, is Labour, Green and Lib Dem are all going to sit together and go, in Gateshead, Newcastle, London, wherever, and I'm not going to sit there. You can go vote so we can kick reform out.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Callum. JS says, Jenrick is a political weasel. What a great day for Kemi to be rid of that disloyal egomaniac. Kemi is an honourable, decent individual. That's from Joe in Belfast. Let's finish off with Mary in Shrewsbury. Hello, Mary.
Oh, hello there, Ian.
Hi.
Thank you for taking my call. I always listen to your program. It's great.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that it's not just me, it's a few friends, it's the older generation. We've been supporting Conservatives for, all our lives in here. And I'm talking as well about my mum-in-law, all the generation friends as well. And we were quite reluctant to support reform because of many things, maybe because the media demonized reform a bit. They always claim the right hard-wing party. But frankly, I think they're the ones that they are putting the interest of the people on heart. And it's not just me, and he was saying, well, unless Robert Jenrick moves, I think he has done a lot for the Conservative Party. He was true to their values. He was really fighting very hard. So now that he has moved to reform, I did say to my husband, you know what, I was not convinced. I said to him, unless people like Robert Jenrick goes to reform, defects to reform, then I will vote reform now. So now reform has my vote as well.
Wow. Okay, Mary. Well, he's got one more vote for reform. Anyway, Mary, thank you very much indeed. Right, we are going to move on to Thursday's Cross Question, because in case you hadn't realised, we're now doing Cross Question Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. On tonight's panel, as if by magic, we have a former Conservative Chief Whip, Lord Simon Hart. He was actually Chief Whip when Robert Jenrick resigned from the government. Munira Wilson is Liberal Democrat Education Spokesperson and MP for Twickenham. Steve Bryan, former Conservative MP and Health Minister, who now co-hosts the Health Fit Focus podcast, Prevention is the New Cure, and the political commentator Jonathan Liss. They'll all be here to answer your questions, not just on Robert Jenrick, not just on reform or the Conservative Party, but anything else you like.
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, ex-senior Tory Robert Jenrick has joined Reform UK. The announcement comes just hours after he was sacked from the shadow cabinet by Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch. Lib Dem leader Ed Davies told LBC this could backfire for Nigel Farage.
Jenrick, he's one of these guys, isn't he, who changes with the wind. He was a Cameron Conservative. He was a Remainer when that was in his interests. He thought that was where he would get to the top. Now he clearly thinks that's not the case. He doesn't think the Conservatives can win, and he's jumped ship. That sends a bit of a message to people, doesn't it?
The White House says Donald Trump's told Iran it will face grave consequences if the regime's killing of protesters continues. Meanwhile, 4 Arab states have conducted intense diplomacy with the US and Iran to try and prevent Washington from attacking. A number of European countries, including the UK and France, are sending troops to Greenland in a show of support for the island. The US President Donald Trump's continuing to insist he wants to take the Danish administered territory over on national security grounds. And the UK economy returned to growth in November. GDP rose by 0.3% compared to a decline of 0.1% in October. In the city, the FTSE 100 closed up 54 points at 10,238. The pound buys $1.33 and €1.15. LBC weather. Lingering rain in eastern England will clear tonight. A few scattered showers elsewhere. A low of -4. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Daryl Jackson.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain's simply... for quick reply, affects your concentration, and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
I've looked after my kids since they were born. Now they've got kids. I still want to look after them. I don't want them struggling to make decisions about my money or my health if I can't. So we made a lasting power of attorney. Now, if I can't speak for myself, they'll speak for me. It's a weight off for all of us, isn't it?
Yes, Mum. Lasting power of attorney.
Search your voice, your decision.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Cross Question with Ian Dale.
Hello, a very good evening to you. It's 3 minutes past 8 on LBC. Welcome to Thursday's Cross Question. Let me tell you who's on the panel. To my left, Munira Wilson, Liberal Democrat Education Spokesperson and MP for Twickenham. Next to her, Lord Simon Hart. I still haven't got used to that. I don't know if you have, Simon.
No, me neither.
It's Simon on the panel, isn't it? Conservative here. He was Chief Whip in Rishi Sunak's government, as well as Secretary of State for Wales. Steve Bryan, former Conservative MP and Health Minister, who now co-hosts the health-focused podcast Prevention is the New Cure. We wouldn't normally have two former Conservative MPs on the same panel, but given the news today, I think we can be excused. Jonathan Liss is here, also political commentator. So if you have a question for them on any subject, not just what's happened today with Robert Jenrick, we'd love to hear from you. 0345 You can watch us on Global Player, the LBC app, and the LBC YouTube channel.
Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Cross Question. Watch live on both Global Player and the new LBC app. This is LBC.
Let's go to our first call. It's from James in Ayr. Hello, James.
Hello there, Ian. I got back past the generational block and your research assistant because I have to explain what the SDP party is back in the 1980s.
Go on, then.
And that's fundamental to the question I'm going to ask you. Is this moment for the Conservative Party analogous to the moment for the Labour Party in the early-ish 1980s with the SDP? The reason I ask that is because, in my mind, elections are always won from the centre. And my feeling is that despite the current manoeuvres on the right, and I'm up the left, so it's an open question to you, I think the Conservative Party will survive this, and I think actually it's important that it survives this, as it was important the Labour Party survived the SDP, because I think both the Labour Party and the Tory Party are broad churches, and I think that's important in the British democracy. So it's a kind of an open question, Ian, to you.
Okay. Well, let me just give a little bit of background to this, because if you're under the age of 57, you wouldn't have ever had a chance to have voted for the old SDP. There is actually a new SDP that has the same logo, but it's, shall we say, a little bit different to the old SDP. The old SDP was effectively people from the moderate bit of the Labour Party that formed a new party in the early 1980s. They formed an alliance with the Liberal Party then, so they fought the 83 and 87 elections as the SDP Liberal Alliance. But because the left of centre vote was split between Labour and the Alliance, the Conservatives got two massive majorities. Well, that was at least one reason why they got massive majorities in those elections. Have I explained that well enough? I'm asking
before my time. Yes. My historical reading.
Okay. Well,
I'm the only one who...
You're the only one that had a clue what I was talking about. So, I mean, essentially, if Reform UK and the Conservatives split the right-wing vote, that can only be to the advantage of Labour and the Liberal Democrats. That's, I think, James, confirm. Is that your thesis?
Yes, it is, yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, Simon, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's what happened in 2029, right? And in the July 24 election. In my own seat would be a good example of that. So yeah, it didn't seem to matter however many times you'd go through the same motions on our doorstep, saying, look, you do realise that vote reform's going to deliver a Labour MP, going to deliver the precise opposite to what it is you actually seek. It works sometimes, it doesn't. When people are frustrated and angry and generally hacked off, it's a sort of, it probably is crazy, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm not sure necessarily do it again, though. And also, the weird thing, given it's a day about defections, is that one of the apparent attractions of reform was the fact that it offered something which was a bit different and a bit new. And yet, over the last few weeks, all we've seen it do is populate itself with stuff which is old and tired, and in some cases quite questionable. And it doesn't not exactly exuding. Exactly, it's not exactly exuding. It's not exactly exuding the impression of being something fresh and interesting and new anymore. And all the people that, when I was Chief Whip, I thought might leave, and in some cases hoped would leave, have all ended up in Camp Nigel. And I find that extraordinary.
When you say in some cases questionable, who do you mean?
I think if you look at, go through the list of, I think however many it is, 20-odd people, there are a number of, I think Ben Bradley was a case in point, who had quite a lot of cough up quite a lot of money for defaming Jeremy Corbyn. And there are other examples of people, and the obvious one, our dear friend Nadeem Zahawi and his forgetfulness with the HMRC.
And Robert Jenrick, would he fall under that category of being questionable?
I think Jenrick's interesting, and I read your Substack today, because Jenrick intrigues me, because when I first knew him, he was sort of slightly dull East Midlands bank manager type person, and I thought it's extraordinary that he's turned into this sort of foaming, angry right-winger, and I don't understand that. But I do.
Have you met his wife?
But I remember. But I remember. You can explain that. I do remember the time that he resigned from Rishi Sunak's government. He was given the role, probably one of the most important roles of government, about sorting out the immigration problem, which didn't happen for whatever reason under his watch. And I remember the agonising will he, won't he resignation, the sort of leverage he was trying to exert over the government at the time. I put it this way, I didn't vote for Robert Jenrick, and I think I got good reason not to have voted for him, and I think today proves that I was right.
Manira.
Well,
you have that look on your face as if I'm actually quite enjoying this. I'm happy to say nothing.
It's quite interesting listening to all of this. I'm quite sad that I'm missing this evening's episode of The Traitors, but I felt like I got an early episode earlier today. It's just quite extraordinary, and I think to Simon's point that you've got all of these Tories defecting, for me it just proves that they're Tories and Reform currently are two sides of the same coin. Do I think it'll be the SDP moment? Who knows? British politics is in such flux at the moment. I've no idea, but it does seem to be becoming a bit of a graveyard party for former disgraced Conservatives, and I just thought it was interesting. I only saw bits of the press conference this afternoon. I saw the bit where he almost didn't turn up, but I know that he was trashing essentially his own record in government. It's quite extraordinary.
The lack of self-knowledge was astonishing.
Given the number of different roles he held in government, and there he was just saying how awful it was, which is something that we in the Liberal Democrats have been saying for some years and will continue to say, and why the British public have lost all confidence in the Tories.
Jonathan Hess.
I think it's an interesting analogy when you compare it to the SDP, because that was about the creation of a moderate party, which eventually forced a party that was more extreme, i.e. the Labour Party at that time, into a more moderate position. But this is the opposite. This is an extreme party, which is forcing, I hesitate to say centrist, because the Tories have not been centrist for a long time, but a centre-right party is dragging that party to the fringes of politics, to the extent that, much as Marinero says, is now not a cigarette paper, as far as I can see, in any concrete policy terms between the Conservatives and Reform, which rather raised the question about why you need to have both of these parties sort of fighting over the same ground. The Conservatives offer nothing now to centrist, small C Conservatives in the home counties, the former stockbroker belt, if you like, of Surrey, the people who would reliably turn out to vote for David Cameron. Those people who want an internationalist Britain, who voted Remain, who want to see Britain play its part in institutions, global institutions.
They're voting Liberal Democrats now, Jonathan.
Well, they are, but that's a really good point, because the Conservatives are sort of facing a similar problem to Labour, in a sense, is that the base doesn't really have anywhere to go, because the Labour is obviously voters are peeling off for the left and the right, and you have to wonder what's going to happen to the Tories. But one thing I would say in the Tories' favour is that if you are shedding people like Robert Jenrick, who only care about their own ambition and their own prospects, Robert Jenrick doesn't have a single principle as far as I can ascertain, and some of the things that he has done in the last couple of years have been so shameful, including when he was a minister. We talk a lot about his comments since he left office, but that's the closure, the painting over of the Mickey Mouse mural in the asylum centre for unaccompanied minors, which is just naked cruelty. We don't talk about that enough, about how so much of the last couple of
I've forgotten about that. Yeah, I would have included that in my rant in the last argument.
With respect to the former Tories here, I think that was such a shameful, iconic moment in the last government where the Conservatives just showed how cruel they were, and Robert Jenrick was at the heart of that. So when you are sort of, and I suppose the political point of this is that Farage may have overplayed his hand for the first time, I think, because here was a man who was not only associated with Tory failure, but was actually partly responsible for it. And so many of the poll numbers that Reform has at the moment are coming from non-voters who are galvanised to vote for change. And if they just see that the same old face
we just had one of them on the line,
right, exactly. Why would they turn out?
But do you not think there is an opportunity here for Kemi Badenoch where she's taken decisive action today? I don't think she's really had any alternative but to do that, but it was decisive. If she said, and Stephen, Simon, I'd be interested to hear your views on this, if she made a speech tomorrow or over the weekend saying, OK, Robert Jenrick's gone, anyone else that would like to leave, please do it now. And then we can really start.
To kind of mirror the deadline that Farage put on today in the Jenrick conference. I mean, I was just watching Manira's smiling when she was answering your first question. You know, when your opponents are making mistakes, for heaven's sake, don't interrupt them. And, I just sort of look at Labour MP, Liberal MPs' faces today, and, they're thoroughly enjoying this. What I would say, though, Ian, every general election essentially comes down to two arguments, right? It's either more of the same or time for a change. And at the next election, let's say it's still Keir Starmer as leader of the Labour Party, which I think is by and large the most likely outcome, because the Labour Party have got no ruthlessness at all. And you've got Nigel Farage, establishment figure,
have you met with
stockbroker, yes, and you've got Davey on his waveboard. Who looks like the future and who looks like the past? If Kemi Badenoch chooses a path that tries to grab the sensible centre-right, the sort of Tory that I am, the One Nation Tory, the one that won Winchester 4 times, then actually there's a huge electorate out there that still wants to vote for that kind of party. And that's the choice.
Many of them voting for Manira's party.
But that's the choice that the Tory party now has, would be the argument that I made. When I saw her sacking of Robert this morning, I thought, well, look, she's either going to look very foolish or she's going to be proved right. And she's certainly been proved right, because this is exactly what he went on to do. But, I mean, Simon and I were in the House at the time. We remember when Robert came in at the Newark by-election in 2015. He could almost not believe that he wasn't sent straight to the Treasury as Chancellor.
This is a common affliction.
When I first became an MP, and somebody who I'm not going to name said to me, you'll find it here, Steve, there's lots of people who've got a lot more ambition than they do talent. And I'm not saying that Robert's not talented, because he is, and he's a very good communicator, particularly on social media. But you're right, John, this is about Robert's ambition. And Nigel Farage may just have found his successor standing next to him today.
And that's not good for Farage either, by the way, because Farage has always operated one-man parties. And anyone who tries to rival Farage in any way always finds themselves defenestrated. Exactly. And if Jenrick thinks that he's going to be sort of challenging Farage for the leadership, or has anywhere near the kind
it's
of
far worse than that, because he's got Richard Tice, he's got Zia Youssef, he's got Lee Anderson, will all regard him as a Johnny come lately.
Yeah. And Zia Youssef and Jenrick have previous as well, by the way.
They do.
That's
Manira, there is possibly an issue for the Liberal Democrats here, isn't there? Because if Kemi Badenoch does succeed in doing what Steve and I were suggesting that she might do, essentially he's saying, look, we're the sensible Conservative Party. We've got the party back again. We're not some sort of zany right-wing sect. We want Liberal Democrat voters back to us because we are their natural home. Now, that could provide a bit of a challenge, could it not?
Well, I'd be surprised to see her go that way. Nothing I've ever seen of Kemi suggests that is the way she leans. It's just not where her instincts are at all. So unless, the Tories have a really bad set of local elections in May, which I suspect they will, and then decide to change leader, now that Jenrick's out the frame, unless they try and find somebody more moderate, but there aren't many of them left, let's face it. But they either stood down, they either stood down or lost their seats at the last election. A lot of those One Nation areas, as Steve said, have now gone Liberal Democrat. So I can't see them changing tack. The people that you've got in charge, like Kemi, she's put Nick Timothy in now to replace Robert Jenrick. I mean, yes, he's a good political operator and communicator, but his politics are way to the right. So I don't think
he was special advisor to Theresa May.
He worked for Theresa May,
wasn't he? He worked for Theresa May.
Well, have you heard some of the things that there's a lot of dog whistling in his questions when he gets up and asks questions in the House of Commons to do with the Islamists taking over.
Well, he was quite right about the Maccabi.
He absolutely was, and I give him credit for that.
And Keir Starmer sort of ridiculed him for it.
But Theresa May was no Liberal, by by the way. I mean,
exactly.
being a spad, Theresa May doesn't.
No, exactly. She was when she was a Home Secretary. She was pretty damn right wing. I mean, she's mellowed, I think, since she stepped down.
Introducing the forced marriage legislation, that was right wing, was it? I mean, not everything that she did was
no, but she was the one who created the hostile environment with the vans going around the country.
Right, let's we've got some more questions on this in a moment, but as I say, we don't want to spend the whole programme talking about Robert Jenrick. It's 18 minutes past 8.
This is LBC.
Get that Euro Millions feeling with Friday's £66 million jackpot. Plus, 10 UK winners are guaranteed to be millionaires. That's 10 more reasons to dance. 10 more robots, 10 more limbos, 10 more salsas. Friday's Euro Millions jackpot is £66 million. And 10 UK winners are guaranteed to be millionaires. Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Play on app. Estimated jackpot. Account terms, rules and procedures apply. Players must be 18 or over.
This is Mummy phone. We're on holiday with an amazing beach. She's asked me to record her voicemail because she said if anyone hears the way I pronounce Minorca, they'll agree how important it is that we spend time together. Undisturbed.
Take your holiday seriously. British Airways Holidays. ATOL protected.
Hiya, Kenny the hamster here, proud pet of Doug and Carol. Hey up, looks like my mum Carol's off out with the girls again. I tell you, since she took that quick NHS Healthy Choices quiz, she's drinking less, but going out more. And to think, she thought being healthy would mean being boring. You might want to give it a go yourself. Go, girlfriend!
Take your first little step to healthy. Search NHS Healthy Choices quiz to get a score and a simple plan to follow.
Cross Question with Ian Dale. Watch live on both Global Player and the new LBC app.
It's 19 minutes past 8 on LBC. Simon Hart is here, Conservative peer, former Chief Whip in Rishi Sunak's government. Rhaenyra Wilson, Liberal Democrat MP for Twickenham and their education spokesperson. Steve Bryan, former Health Minister and host of the podcast Prevention is the New Cure. And Jonathan List, political commentator. Right, a text question from Evan in West Wales. Your neck of the woods.
I mean, hope he doesn't know me.
Will the ever-ambitious Robert Jenrick be leading the Reform Party into the next general election? In that regard, has Farage just massively shot himself in the foot? Jonathan.
Well, as I was saying a couple of moments ago, Nigel Farage is very much his own man. He doesn't like other people in the tent with him. If you look at his party history, he sort of sets up parties or takes them over, then sort of gets rid of them when a new party comes along. So obviously he was in UKIP, then he formed the Brexit Party, then the Brexit Party became Reform. And anyone who tried to get close to him or close to power found themselves very, very swiftly dispatched. The latest one,
I remember.
Right, well, but certainly in terms of rival leaders of those parties, but even, you look at Rupert Lowe, for example, who now sits as an independent MP. He dared to question Farage. He made some comments about Farage's personality, and strange enough, then he was sort of unpersoned the next day. So if Jenrick thinks that he is going to become some kind of natural successor to Farage, then he fundamentally misunderstands who Farage is as a politician. There is only room for Farage in this party. And that actually is an interesting long-term question for Reform, by the way, because parties have never operated like that in British politics. They are not one-man bands. They're not sort of limited companies, for a start, and they're certainly not one-man bands. And so, Farage is not sort of 25 years old. There will come a time in which he sort of moves on politically. And then you have to think, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen in a year in British politics, let alone 20 years, but there will have to be some people coming through. Now, you do have some people, such as Layla Cunningham, who is a very good communicator, although she has had some sort of dodgy interviews.
And the new Scottish leader, former Tory minister,
right.
Moffat, he's very
right.
good.
But the thing is that what Farage does have, and I say this as a complete opponent of his, obviously, is he's an exceptional communicator, and in person he's very likeable. And he does have that kind of charisma, which you can't learn in politics. You either have it or you don't. Robert Jenrick, as he used to be known by everybody, until he sort of had this Damascene conversion to being sort of like a cosplaying far-right charlatan, does not have that cult of personality anywhere close to it. In the same way that J.D. Vance is never going to have what Trump has. It's the X factor. He doesn't have it.
Steve. Is he really that likeable? Nigel Farage? I mean, I thought
I don't like him politically, obviously, but he's people want to have a drink with him.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I mean, I saw him today at the press conference, and he's just so full of himself. I just think it's ghastly. But, I mean, I put out a message on my school friend's WhatsApp earlier, and I said, just tell me, I'm going on LBC later, tell me your thoughts on Gemrick. And one of them replied, if you lot carry on like this, even I might vote Tory again. So, it maybe the stables the Aegean stable is being cleared out, and, there is that place, I think, on the centre-right. But look, the bottom line is, Ian, is that Gemrick has decided, as we said, very ambitious person, wants to be Prime Minister. He's decided that his best route to do that is not with the Tory party, it's with reform. And so, that's a problem. It's inescapable truth for Kemi Badenoch, whichever way you look at it. That is a problem. And that's the calculation that he's made. Now,